Good morning, Your Majesties. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you that are new here, welcome to my YouTube channel. I have another story time for you guys. This one's called The Painted Door. Now, I wasn't going to read this to you guys because I didn't think it was that interesting. It didn't seem that interesting. But then I was reading it and I'm like, okay, all right, I'll read it to you guys. Okay, so The Painted Door. At the edge of a once thriving town, where the streets now lay cracked and forgotten, stood a duplicated mansion, a relic of a time when life bustled through the town's veins. The mansion, the mansion with its crumbling walls and overgrown gardens had long been abandoned. Its windows dark and empty like the hollow lights of a ghost. But there was one feature of the mansion that had always stood out, a detail that made even the bravest souls shudder, a door that no one could open. Okay. The door set into the farthest corner of the mansion's main hallway was unremarkable at first glance. The paint was chipped and faded, the wood warped and splintered with age, but those who ventured close enough to truly look at it found themselves overwhelmed by a sense of dread, an expectable terror that seeped into their bones and gnawed at their insanity. No, not at their sanity. The door was enigma and mystery that had defied explanation for decades. The townspeople spoke of it in hushed tones, recounting stories those who had tried to open it, only to be driven mad by what lay beyond. For years, the mansion remained empty, a monument to the town's forgotten past. But that all changed with when a new family arrived, seeking to breathe life back into the decaying structure. The family, the Tanners that moved to the town in search of a fresh start. The father, David, had taken a job in a nearby factory, and his wife, Helen, had fallen in love with the mansion's old world charm. Despite its obvious state of despair, their son Jacob, are you the same Jacob that was in the well story? Their son Jacob, a quiet and curious boy of 12. Okay, I don't think this is the same Jacob. Okay, a quiet and curious boy of 12 was less enthusiastic about the move, but he found himself captivated by the mansion's secrets. For a moment, they moved in. Jacob felt the pull of the painted door. It was as though the door was alive, watching him with unseen eyes, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Every time he walked by it, he felt a cold chill run down his spine, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the door was somehow changing, new cracks appearing in the wood, fresh smears of paint that seemed to shift and move when he wasn't looking. The door seemed to beckon him, calling him in a voice that only he could hear. Oh no, not that. Only he could hear? The rest of the family seemed oblivious to the door's presence. David was preoccupied with his work, and Helen busied herself with cleaning and restoring the mansion's many rooms. But Jacob couldn't ignore it. The door consumed his thoughts, filling his dreams with dark, twisted images that left him waking in a cold sweat. Oh, I hate cold sweats. He tried to tell his parents, but they dismissed his concerns as the product of an overactive imagination. Determined to uncover the door's secrets, Jacob began to spend more time in the hallway, waiting for anything to happen. Again, parents, listen to your kids. It wasn't long before his patience was rewarded. One stormy night, as the wind howled through the trees and rain lashed against the windows, Jacob lay awake in bed. Jacob lay awake in his bed, the sound of the storm echoing in his ears. There he was restless, his mind churning with thoughts of the door. Unable to sleep, he decided to go downstairs, hoping to calm his nerves with a glass of water. As he reached the bottom of the stairs, he heard it. A faint rhythmic knocking coming from behind the painted door. The sound was barely audible over the storm, but it sent a jolt of fear through him. His heart pounded in his chest as he approached the door. The knocking growing louder with each step. Standing at the door, Jacob hesitated, his hand trembling as he reached for the doorknob. The knocking stopped abruptly, replaced by a heavy silence that pressed down on him like a weight. He held his breath, his fingers brushing against the cold metal of the knob. To his surprise, the door swung open at his touch. The room beyond was small. The room beyond was small, barely more than a closet, dimly lit by a single flickering candle. That cast long, dancing shadows on the walls. The air was thick with the scent of mildew, oh gosh, and something else. Something dark and unnameable. Jacob's eyes widened as he took in the sight before him. Walls covered in paintings, each one more disturbing than the last. Jeez. The paintings depicted the scenes of terror and despair, twisted visions that seemed to crawl from the darkest corners of the mind. One showed a man trapped in the burning house, his face contorted in agony as flames licked his skin. Another depicted woman drowning in a sea of black, her hands clawing at the surface as she was dragged into the depths. Each painting was so vivid, so lifelike that Jacob felt as though he could hear the screams of the figures trapped within the frames. Okay. Trapped. Wait, hold on. Painted door. Sorry, you guys. Hold on. Okay. As he moved deeper into the room, Jacob's gaze was drawn to a painting in the center of the wall. It was larger than the others, its frame ornate and glided, but what caught his attention was the scene depicted It showed a family standing outside the mansion, their faces turned toward the viewer. The father was tall and strong, the mother graceful and kind, and the boy looked exactly like Jacob. Oh, heck no. His heart raced as he realized that the painting was of his own family, captured in perfect detail as they had appeared on the day they moved into the mansion. The figures were frozen, their expressions blank, almost lifeless. But as Jacob stared at the painting, the figures seemed to shift, their faces slowly twisting into expressions of fear and anguish. The boy's eyes, once bright with curiosity, were now wide with terror, his mouth open in a silent scream. Horrified, Jacob stumbled backward, his breath coming in short. Panicked, gasped, he had to get out. He had to leave the room before whatever force had created the paintings had before the force had created the paintings could take hold of him too. He turned to flee, but the door slammed shut with a defeating bang, trapping him inside. The candle flickered widely, casting ghostly shadows on the walls as the painting seemed to close in around him. Jacob pound oh Jacob pounded on the door, his fist bruising against the unyielding wood. Help! Let me out! He screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the darkness, the walls closing in tighter, the air growing thick and suffocating. The painted figures on the walls seemed to reach out toward him, their twisted faces filled with malice and despair. In the last desperate attempt to escape, Jacob threw himself at the door, but it was no use. The room, the, the room was alive with a malevolent force, and it had claimed as its own. The last thing Jacob saw before the darkness consumed him was his own reflection in the glass of the nearest painting, his face pale and contorted with terror, his eyes wide with the realization that he was now part of the cursed collection. Oh my goodness. Okay. Damn. Okay. The next morning, the mansion was quiet. The storm having passed in the night, Helen and David awoke to find their son's empty bed, his room undisturbed. Panic set in as they searched the house calling his name. But there was no sign of Jacob anywhere. It was as though he had simply vanished. Their search eventually led him to the hallway, where the painted door stood closed, as it always had been. But this time, something was different. The door, once chipped and faded, was now smooth and freshly painted, the wood gleaming in the morning light, and on the wall beside it, where the paint had always been cracked and peeling, hung a new painting. A portrait of a young boy, his face twisted in a silent scream, his eyes filled with a terror that would never fade. The Tanners left the mansion that very day. The Tanners left the mansion that very day, unable to bear the weight of the loss and the darkness that hung over the house. The mansion once again fell into despair, its secrets hidden behind locked doors, and peeling paint. But those who passed by the old house would sometimes speak of the painted door and the boy who had been lost to the curse for who had been lost to its curse, forever trapped within the walls of the haunted room. The painted door remained closed, its secrets locked away, waiting for the next soul, brave or foolish enough to seek the truth. To seek the truth. Oh man. What do you guys think of that story? Have you guys heard of that story? I think it's interesting. I mean, it's scary, but it's not. I mean, I think it's interesting. It is scary. I mean, the part where he threw himself at the door, yeah, that's creepy. But anyway, I'm losing my voice. So I'm going to end today's video here. So that's going to be it for today's video. So if you're new here, hi, I'm Princess Peyton. Hit the red button to become your majesty and hit the bell notification so you're notified every time I upload a video. And I love you guys so much. You guys are the best human beings ever made. And you're the king of my heart in the song lyrics to Taylor Swift. And I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Okay, love you. Bye. Mwah.